and we're talking to Dave Hale, regular visitor from the Sheppey Horticultural Society. And at the moment we're talking all about good types and the best types of hedges that you can grow.
That's absolutely true, actually. We were talking about the security type of fence, or security type of hedge. Look at me, fence. Security type of hedge that you can actually grow, and very probably it's too. But don't forget that you, depending on how close you grow the plants, you'll also form a very effective windbreak with hedging. It protects the plants which are inside your garden, or those which really do need protecting. So you'd be surprised just how much a hedge will slow down the wind. Secondly, you've really got to think about the eventual height that some of the plants will grow to. For instance, you don't want to block out your own light, or your neighbours for that. So you need to consider how high a hedge is actually going to grow, or how high you're going to allow it to grow. And the number of times a year that growth will need to be cut back. For instance, and we've mentioned already the dreaded Leyland cypress, it grows so fast it will need to be cut back at least 3 times in a year. And that could be from April to October, so you'll be getting the ladders out at least 3 times in that particular year to cut it back. You need to think very carefully before you plant the Leyland cypress, or the Cupressicyprus leylandii, to give it its proper name. It's almost as long as the tree will grow high in that quick space. So you need to be careful where that's concerned, where height is concerned, and spread as well. You don't really want it spreading out. You've got to be very careful how you actually lay these things out. But I go back to what I'm actually saying. A very good hedge would be one which has all of those kinds of plants in it, because it will benefit so many different animals, other species.
And Dave, how much will an allotment plot cost for the year?
For this year, it depends obviously on the plot size, but a full 10-rod allotment will cost about £33. Actually, it's £33 and 10p. A 5-rod plot will cost you £17.25 per annum. Very good fare, if I may say so myself. Extremely good. We also have separate rates for senior people and disabled people, where a 10-rod plot will cost in total £24.75, and likewise a 5-rod allotment will set you back just over £13. You have to remember, of course, that those rates include the cost of water, which is metered on both our sites, and a small subscription for membership of the society. That currently stands at £1.40. So all in all, a very good price for what you're actually getting out from the ground yourself.
Well, that last record was on. A text coming in to us from Rich at A2 Cabs, and he's asking, what is the best way what is the best pesticide for caterpillars and vegetables for his 7-year-old son who wants to be a chef?
Personally, I would recommend his son's fingers, or his own fingers. That's how I actually do it. What you need to remember, of course, is that prevention's better than any kind of cure. So if you can possibly prevent a caterpillar from a cabbage white getting on to your brassicas or your cabbages in the first place, then do that. So I would suggest that first of all you find yourself a netting which has a sufficiently small mesh size that doesn't allow the cabbage white butterfly to get through and lay its eggs on the brassica or the cabbage. If it does happen to get through, or if they've been left uncovered, then obviously you've got to check underneath, because they tend to lay the eggs underneath in little white, they're very small white, they look like tiny little white pimples which are on the underside of the leaf. If you see those kinds of eggs, then rub your fingers against it. It's the cheapest, simplest, easiest way of actually getting rid of the eggs. If you're too late for that, and you do actually notice, and you will notice that caterpillars have got through, again, I would suggest that Richard was the person who called in. Richard. Richard's son actually picks off the caterpillars. They are, after all, somebody actually described them basically as caterpillar juice tubes, which is a derogatory way of putting it, but that's basically what they are. They're just there to eat and then to pupate, and then actually to turn themselves into yet more cabbage white butterflies. So if you can pick them off, and you're not squeamish, and you're not squeamish where that's concerned, if you want to squash them, by all means. But I would recommend that you take them far enough away, put them onto a bird table, and let the blue tits have them, because at that particular time they will be desperate to feed their chicks, and that will continue the cycle of allowing more birds to actually grow up and take more caterpillars themselves. It's an ever-turning circle. So netting with a sufficiently small mesh to make sure the butterflies can't get through, and believe me, they will push themselves through some nets if that mesh is wide enough to get through. So make sure it's sufficiently small. If they do get through, then check to make sure that there are no eggs, and that's regular maintenance, in effect, regular prevention. Rub your fingers against what you may think are the small white eggs, little clusters of white pimples underneath. If the caterpillars do actually manage to hatch out, then again, either rub your fingers against them or feed them to the birds. Personally, I don't actually put pesticides on the kind of things that I want to actually eat. I try to grow as ecologically sound as I possibly can, rather than actually using any kind of pesticide. If you do happen to want to use a pesticide, I would suggest one that is actually soap based. Fairy liquid, for instance, because it actually clogs up the spiracles on the side of the caterpillar. They don't breathe through their mouth, they actually breathe through small breathing tubes on the sides of their bodies. So 3 or 4 ways of actually doing it, but if you're squeamish, I would suggest a soap solution of some kind, something which is ecologically sound. Hopefully that will help young chap, and I wish him all the best for his chefdom days.
What would you recommend to someone who's interested in becoming a member of the Sheppey Horticultural Society and going on to have their own allotment plant?
I think you need to discuss your particular plans with your family. Nobody likes a surprise by saying, oh yes, I bought these spades and forks, we're all going out to dig an allotment that I rented last week. So involve your family from the start. Allotmenteering, as we've discussed this evening and on previous occasions, is very popular now, and it shows no sign of diminishing in that kind of popularity. So I would suggest also that while you're involving your family in your plans, actually, is to read up on the subject. There are any number of books, articles, newspaper features and websites these days which are available for research. The BBC, for instance, has pages and pages and pages of gardening website and allotment website. Programs like your own here this evening. It's great to get across that message because it's ever burgeoning. Decide on your targets, such as what you want to grow, how much time you've actually got to devote to it. That's very important. While it's not all hard work, there is some toiling to be done, and we've talked about some digging, digging practice and what have you. Unless, of course, you're lucky enough to take over a fully prepared plot. For whatever reason, some people do actually give up a plot, and you're lucky if you're taking over one which hasn't got weeds on it in that sense and has been well and carefully tended. It's also very important here that you've got a free fitness program. There's no joining of any clubs apart from actually joining the society itself, which we think is good value. And there's always time to switch off for a while, Daniel. I've said this before, and I'll say it time after time. You can always switch off. You can be just in your own world, actually. Even in Sheerness, you can be in your own world. You see quite a lot of people actually sort of just ruminating and just watching the birds and the clouds go by on many, many occasions. So if you want to take up an allotment or a plot, actually you can contact the society, and I would suggest getting in touch or telephoning our secretary, Sue Underhill, and Sue's number is 01795 661 547. So that's 017, you don't mind me repeating it?
No.
01795 661 547. Or if the weather hopefully is getting better and it doesn't storm like it stormed here till this evening, you can take a stroll and pay us a visit on a Sunday morning. We'd be delighted to see you at either of our sites, where you'll meet some very friendly, welcoming people, only too willing to chat and to give you help.
Dave, I'd like to thank you very much for coming along this evening.
It's always a pleasure, and it's always delightful to come and see you and to talk about my particular passion, which of course is allotmenteering and gardening. I hope some of the stuff we talked about tonight is actually useful.
Oh, definitely.
And look forward to seeing you again. Thank you again.
We'll see you in a couple of months' time.
I'm sure.
That's Dave Hale from the Sheppey Horticultural Society here at BRFM 95.6.